So went and got checked out, and I'm sort of waking up from the colonoscopy, and the doctor leans in my face and says, "Oh, you've got cancer." I'm like, "Well, that
Wow.
sucks," you know. I'm like, well, so anyhow, I was like, "Oh crap," you know. It's funny because I had run Boston Patriots Day earlier that year, about 6 months earlier. So clearly I had it at that time, didn't know it, but I'm like, gee, I ran Boston with a tumor. I wonder if that's a different category. Takes the wind out of your sails, but I kept running a little bit during that period. I found I had enough energy and stuff and that always made me feel better. Again, you talk about mood. Oftentimes, when I'm going to do this, was true before cancer, after cancer, whatever, but you don't want to do a run. You're like, oh, I don't feel good. And I'm like, but you know what? I know I'm going to feel better after I run. And invariably, that's true. You always feel better after you run. Those first few marathons, I would say the first 3 years of running marathons, I had every running injury known to man. They're all overuse injuries. You're ramping up too fast. I had plantar fasciitis, Achilles tendonitis, ITB band syndrome that brought you down. I had all of these things, and
Right.
kept saying, it must be the shoe. It's the magic shoe. I got to find the right shoe. I spend more money. I had these cushion monstrosities, and still had injuries. What I finally figured out, you just need to be regular about it, and you slowly build up your legs. Your connective tissues get thicker and more resilient. You just have to be patient. It takes time to do that.
Mm.
And I think the problem for a lot of people when they do running, and maybe this is true of biking as well, they go through that initial period where you feel really awful and you just start to feel better, and then they stop. So if they take it up again, they're always in that first couple week period where they feel like crap. They're like,
Right.
oh, this running is awful. Well, if you stick with it, it gets easier. But the secret is you have to stick with it.
I am Baiki Venki, and this is the Working Athlete Podcast. Here, I talk to working athletes from all walks of life and experts from various sports to provide you with inspiration, training tips, time management, and lifestyle advice. If this is something that interests you, please make sure you subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss any future episodes. Today's guest, Dave King, is a badass marathon runner and a cancer survivor. Dave has been an inspiration for me and many others who are fortunate to cross paths with him. He was one of the key figures who helped me stay active when I was feeling down without any activity during the wintery Vermont days back in 2010 when I was there on work for a year. This lifelong working athlete is now retired from work but keeps busy with home projects, volunteering, running, and gravel mountain biking more recently. Welcome to the Working Athlete Podcast, Dave. It's a pleasure having you on the show.
Hey, Vicky, it's great to talk to you again.
Thank
We had
you.
a lot of fun together in Vermont. It
Yes,
was good.
yes, yes. I can't forget the kind of help you guys were. You, Rob Levezer, Eric McCarthy, Kim Potter, Andy, and Sheila Emerson. All you guys were very key, people uh, during my time there in Vermont back in 2009 and 10. And that period, that 1 year, has changed my life, you know, in many ways. So you had a big part in that. So
Yeah,
thank you.
as you mentioned, it was a group. It really was a group effort. I think that's what sustained us in the winter. It's easy to put it off and say, "Nah, I'm not gonna do this run at lunchtime. It's like 5 degrees and the wind is blowing." But I blame a lot of it on Sandy Colvin. I called them her Sandygrams. She would send out an email saying, "Who's going running today?" And like, okay, someone else is going, I'll go, but we would go out in all sorts of weather. You sort of learn the layers that you need to do it,
Right.
biking, if you need a little more wind protection, whatever. Same thing in running. We would buy shoes that were, water repellent. We would layer on some big socks. We would basically use gear that you would use in cross country skiing. That's
Hmm.
what we would be running in. Sport Hill makes wonderful, wind block clothing, so we would go out. I think our record was, it was 6 below 0 Fahrenheit. I don't know what that is Celsius. That's way
Wow,
down there. But
that's way down.
uh,
Yeah.
and the wind chill was in the minus 20s. Again Fahrenheit. But we still went out. We would tend to go in the woods rather than out in the open, to try to cut the wind down a little. But
Hmm.
we still got out there. Sometimes we even had to resort to spikes. Catula makes something called the nano spike that you can actually put on a running shoe. So
Right.
if it got icy or slippery, we'd wear those things. But yeah, again, that little nudge from the Sandygram got us going, and the whole group sort of egging each other on.
Right.
We managed to get out there a whole lot.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I managed to join you guys on a few runs during those lunch hours. Uh, and I used to join you for runs, and used to join Rob for hikes and
Mhm.
mountain biking. He got me into a single track mountain biking. That was a lot of fun. And the since you mentioned about layering for the cold, right? The first
Mhm.
time I went out on the National Life Trail, I was dressed for like someone who is going out for a walk with heavy winter jacket, and within 5 minutes of following Rob, I was sweating tons
Yes.
inside.
Yes. Now the rule of thumb is you dress for your run as if it's 20 degrees warmer. So you have to expect that you're going to heat up a lot as you move. So it's tough when you first start. Sometimes you're a little chilled, but you're exactly right. You warm up so much, you're sweating and pulling layers off, and yeah, you got
Right.
it. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's the drill.
you and Rob then kind of taught me about layering and what are the kind of layers you need to look for: a wind blocker, a kind of a thicker layer and a thinner layer and all that. So I went out and did some shopping. I think it was maybe at Walmart or something, and got a bunch of layers. And I
Mhm.
think from then on, it wasn't that much of a problem. I remember my you mentioned -6 Fahrenheit. That would be like -28 or something like that in
Yeah,
centigrade.
yeah,
But I did not venture out for runs in that cold. But I remember going out for a run in -8 degrees centigrade. And
yeah,
yeah, yeah, that was fun. I had those shoes with the spikes and all that, running in snow, essentially on the snow covered
yeah,
roads.
yeah.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. Yeah.
Yeah, you adapt. I mean, it doesn't take a lot of money, but yeah, you have to, you know, adapt to whatever the conditions might be. And it's not real hard, but it does take some experience to guess at it.
Yeah.
And in a group, we sort of helped each other do that. That was a
Yeah.
huge thing. But as you know, just getting any sort of regular activity going, especially during those months when you tend to sit there and just drink coffee and eat sweets. It's nice to have some regular exercise going, because what it would do also, if you were going to run, you knew I can't be snacking all morning because my stomach's going to hurt when I go out and try to run. So you might have, your breakfast and then maybe some snack after that, early in the morning, but then you wouldn't eat until lunchtime because you knew you were going to go running,
Right.
So it encouraged you not to sort of browse all day. I think it really helped us keep
Yeah.
the weight down and
Yeah, it was
yeah.
also a lot, it helped my mood a lot, because I noticed
Oh
in
yeah.
the initial months, I got there just as the spring was gone. The spring colors were fading, and it became gray all around from all those beautiful
Yeah.
colors. And and I noticed that I just got into cycling a year before, when I was in Hyderabad. And once I got there, I you know I found I researched about bike shops, and found a community bike shop where I went and volunteered. But I didn't have any bike to go out and ride yet. I was going there on Thursdays and Fridays or something like that, a couple of days a week, to volunteer repairing bikes there. And then but I wasn't doing any sort of exercise. So I quickly realized that I was feeling a lot down. And initially I thought, okay, I was missing my family, because I did not get my family there at that time. And but quickly realized, okay, this is that, the weather, the lack of sunlight and all that is, and lack of physical activity is kind of getting me feeling depressed. And then that's when the lunchtime running group and hiking groups and all that came into the picture, and really really saved me in a way. Yeah.
Yeah, and you're right, at these northern latitudes, you're right about the light. They call it seasonal affective disorder. Some people really do get depressed during the winter months from the lack of light. And I think activity is the key. Now, you're much closer to the equator than we are. I think during the shortest winter days, that would be December 21st, around that time. That's the solstice. It's less than 8 hours of daylight,
Right. Yeah.
which is quite a difference, when you're used to 12 and 12.
Yeah.
Um, but the summer is great because we get up to 15
Yeah.
hours of daylight, whatever.
Yeah, you choose to
Yeah,
kind of become light. I think 4 or 5 in the morning, and then
yeah,
not
yep,
go down till 9. So
yeah,
those
yeah,
those
exactly.
those days were really good for riding
Yeah.
early or late in the evening. So I did
Hmm.
a bit of riding later in that summer. Yeah, that was good.
Yeah, I know some people ride their fat bikes, their studded tire fat bikes in the winter with
Mm.
headlamps and headlights. You literally got to have a light bright enough so you can see the trail that you're on.
Yeah.
I didn't try that with a headlight, but yeah,
No,
I tried it a little.
even in when there is some even for my rides, when I when I finally built a mountain bike for myself with that co-op. I start one day, I remember starting the ride at 12 noon, and it was bright and sunny, but the weather it was 0 degrees essentially.
Oh, oof.
And I went out for a ride. That was my first 100 kilometers ride there. I came back.
In the
uh,
winter? Ooh.
yeah. I By the time I reached back, it was close to 6 p.m. in the evening or
Oh
something.
gosh.
I got the bottle out of the bottle case, trying to drink. It was ice.
It
There
was
was nothing.
frozen. That's right. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Well, they make insulated water bottles now, so if you
Yeah,
put it in a little warm, it won't freeze so fast. But oh
it
my
was
gosh. Yeah.
crazy. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I
You
have a
learn
few
these things.
pictures of the same route. So my bike in summer and my bike in winter, parked around, again, it's the same post.
Yeah.
There are two different worlds. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, as you know, in Vermont, the roads can dry out a little. They might be kind of, have the road salt on them or something like that, which can be tough on your bike. So you can do road riding in the winter, without
Mm.
needing studs and all that. But yeah, the
But
temperature
it's
is going to be tough.
but it is like you said, it's hard on the components with all the salt and
Yeah,
stuff. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. If you can't wash your bike off easily and wash the tires off, the rust will get them in a hurry. But yeah, running's a little easier. You just put your gear on and go.
Yeah.
But that regularity of what we did was huge, because as you saw Sandy's marathon training schedules.
Mm.
We ran a marathon in May, the end of May, every year, Vermont City Marathon. That was our sort of target race to get things going. And well, you start the training program 16 weeks prior to that,
Mm.
and your first long run is maybe an 8 miler. Well, even to do 8 miles, you have to have some background to be able to do that.
Right.
So you basically have to be running a little bit year round. And then you pick it up during that 16-week ramp up. I was describing this to you before. Sandy worked out the schedules, and okay, every weekend you do a long run. Okay, so the first long run would be 8, the second long run would be 10, and then the next weekend you do 12, and then you drop it back to 10, and then you do 14 and drop it back to 10. So you slowly ramp up that long run. They get longer and longer, but there's this huge lead up, across a 16-week period. You're running 3 or 4 of the weekdays during that time, 3 to 5 mile runs, but that long run is the critical part for doing the marathon, for just getting used to the miles. I mean,
Right.
this from biking. I got these terms from my biking friends that would do really long rides. They call it bonking, BONK, bonking.
Yeah.
It's where you blow through all your blood sugar and you just get exhausted,
Yeah.
because you've used up all your fuel.
Yeah. Been
When
there
you
and done
start
that
doing
for a
these,
few times. Yeah.
oh yeah, so you have to take in something during the ride, right? I
Right.
mean, you can't do
Yeah.
the whole ride with nothing. You have to take in some water, but you also need some carbs when you're getting into these 15, 18 mile runs. You mentioned you went 30, how many K, 33K, something like that, and ran into problems. I think the marathon, the 26.2 mile marathon, is 43, 44K,
Right.
something
Yeah.
like that.
I
But
got I got to a half marathon distance in my long runs before I shot
okay.
my knee. So the weekday runs with you guys were great, but yeah, when once I got to my second long run, second
Mhm.
time that I ran 21K, I think maybe it was a case of too much too soon, in
Yeah.
because I didn't have that much running in my legs. We kind of started. I started 16 weeks before, but even for that, like you mentioned, to do that properly, also you need some kind of a base before that, and I
Mhm.
didn't have that coming in. I was excited to be part of your group, and Vermont City Marathon being my first marathon, I signed up and I was really gung ho about training for it. But I guess it was a clear case of too much too soon as I was ramping up, and I
Mhm.
couldn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's tough to find the magic combination of things, but I think hanging in there over months and years is really important. Yeah, I've mentioned this, I've told you this story before, where I've done 28 marathons total. The first 5 marathons, I screwed up everything. My first one was terrible. I ended up walking the last 3 miles, I think. But, went out way too fast, didn't really train enough, and I finally got my act together, by the 6th marathon, and started running it more evenly for the whole race instead of going out really fast and then crashing. but it's the distance that crushes you. 5K is a crazy race. It's anaerobic. You can just go out and run yourself into the ground and survive it. The marathon is very unforgiving. From the half marathon and up, you will crush yourself if you go out way too fast. But also if you haven't trained, it's really unpleasant.
Right.
But those first few marathons, I would say the first 3 years of running marathons, I had every running injury known to man. They're all overuse injuries. You're ramping up too fast. I had plantar fasciitis, Achilles tendonitis, ITB band syndrome that brought you down. I had all of these things, and
Right.
kept saying, it must be the shoe. It's the magic shoe. I got to find the right shoe. I spend more money. I had these cushion monstrosities and still had injuries. What I finally figured out, you just need to be regular about it, and you slowly build up your legs. Your connective tissues get thicker and more resilient. You just have to be patient. It takes time to do that.
Mm,
But
that is true.
that's marathoning is crazy because it really is months and years. But even just running cross country in high school, most of us would sit around all summer and then boom, start trying to train to run cross country, and we had all kinds of overuse injuries. It was really clear. We didn't have any regular pattern of running during the summer and the rest of the year. So yeah, we get there, run real fast. Thank God there were 2.5 mile races or something. They didn't really have 5K established until I was out of high school. Each high school had its own length, anywhere from 2.3 to 2.7 miles. And Littleton, the high school I was at in New Hampshire, had the longest cross country course in the state. Ours was 2.7 because of where they ran and how they had to do the loop, and everybody dreaded it. They're like, oh God, that's so long, 2.7 miles. I mean, God, you could do that in your sleep. But yeah, we were horrified that the course was so long, but anyhow, ramping up into that, we would do it so fast. I actually had to sit out most of the season. I had a severe overuse bursitis injury in one leg, but yeah, I stopped running for a while and then didn't start until I was in my 40s, in my mid 40s. My wife was out running with an office friend of hers, and I was like, gosh, I should do that, So I started running and finally got it in my head I'd try a marathon. And again, as
So
I said, I
you
did it
you
badly.
you had cross country running background in school and stuff. Then you stopped, and then you picked up again in your
Yeah,
40s.
20 years later.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. So I was the weekend warrior, as I call it initially. I sort of wasn't doing much, and boom, hey, I'm going to run a marathon. So I survived it anyhow and kept going, and realized that it's really the regularity. It gets, as when you train a little bit, it gets easier. Your physiology gets more efficient, and you're like, oh, well, this isn't much easier than it was when I started this. And I think the problem for a lot of people when they do running, and maybe this is true of biking as well, they go through that initial period where you feel really awful and you just start to feel better, and then they stop. So if they take it up again, they're always in that first couple week period where they feel like crap. They're like, oh, this running is awful. Well, if you stick with it, it gets easier. But the secret is you have to stick with it.
Yeah.
So I learned that I try to keep some exercise going. As I told you, I had a back injury. I ruptured a disc in 2017. So I haven't been doing really long distances. What was happening was I had sciatic nerve damage that was making my foot land funny, and I was actually injuring my foot. So I backed off and I got into biking, which is your world, which you know so well.
Yeah.
Running, I know very well. Biking, I don't know at all. So
Yeah.
stupid me, again, trying to overdo it. I sign up for this thing called the Vermont Super 8, which is a mountain biking gravel road race, bike packing thing in 2 loops. The first loop is 260 miles. The second one is 360.
Oh my God.
And I thought, well, I'll just do, the first 150 miles. And so I would stop at my sister's house. She's up, on the loop somewhere up in northeastern Vermont, and I had no experience in this, completely overloaded the bike. I'm riding a fat bike with 4-inch tires, knobby tires. I mean, when this thing is rolling on asphalt, it sounds like a truck coming down the road. It's
Oh
literally,
yeah.
and that's what I'm riding in this thing. And these guys have these really nice gravel bikes with fairly narrow tires and tiny little packs. And my pack was completely overloaded. I think it weighed 72 pounds or something,
Wow.
without me on it. It was completely crazy. So I hop on this thing. The first 26 miles was 4,000 feet of climbing. We're on and off gravel roads. I think there's a few miles of pavement, but the rest of it was either gravel or, mountain bike trails. It was absolutely crazy. My heart rate, I was wearing my watch. My heart rate was higher. Okay, 26 miles, right? My heart rate was higher than it was during the entire marathon that I ran,
Wow.
a few years earlier. That's how hard I was working, pushing this bike up the hills and everything.
Right.
So I started getting muscle spasms and everything. And I dropped out and told the guys I was with to go on without me because I was holding them up.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I've rebuilt my bike with much narrower tires. I went from 4-inch to 2.3,
Mhm.
um, dropped the weight, bought ultralight gear and everything. And I'm going to try something again, maybe not 260 miles, but
But gradually
just
build up to it.
exactly. So yeah, I figured I'd jump right into biking, and no, you got to respect the sport. You really got to
Yeah.
know what you're doing.
Yeah,
But
it's biking is not that much of an impact sport, but you still have to kind of use the same logic that you would use for running to gradually build into it, right? There's some similar reuse injuries or overuse injuries can come up even with cycling, right? So
yeah, well, this fat bike, one thing, it's a Otso, their Voitech model. Um, it has the narrowest Q factor. Talk about overuse injuries on fat bikes. One problem is your legs are spread so far apart. You're at a weird angle, and you tend to get knee injuries. Well, the Q factor, if it's very low, your legs are closer together like a road bike. And
right.
and this model has the lowest Q factor in the industry. So I had that in mind in trying to use this thing. So we'll
Mhm.
we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, you will do great once you ramp up, become regular on this. No
Well, I
too less.
also tried. I bought some pedals that are flat pedals on one side, and you flip them over, and they have the clip.
Right, yeah, they
I've
also.
never had bike shoes with the clips. How much does that buy you, having that clip on the pedal? I mean, how
No,
much does that really buy you?
by you in I think it's more about having a steady pedal, so especially for these trails and bumpy roads on gravel, right? It
Mhm.
with all that you would lose footing, and
Yeah, and
having,
you do
yeah,
exactly. Yeah,
having that
there.
clipped in, it really helps.
Yeah, I've literally, my foot flipped off because I hit a bump and wasn't paying attention, and I'm sitting there going, ah.
Yeah, it can be quite dangerous, right? Yeah.
Yeah, but I hope there's some efficiency as well, and but in running, I have a sense of, okay, I go this far, then I drink something, then I take a gel, whatever. In biking, I'm like, I don't know what's going on. When do I stop? What do I don't have a clue. So I have to learn all of that.
Yeah, it's quite similar to running, Dave. It's you got to supply energy at regular intervals. Keep, if you have energy drink, keep sipping it, or if you have, if you are carrying energy bars, keep having a bite at every half an hour, 20 minutes, or whatever, right? You'll figure it out, the frequency that is personal to you, but and keep hydrating as you go on. So
Mhm.
it's not rocket science as such, because you've been a sportsman now for more than what, donkey's years now. So
Yeah,
you'll figure it out.
into ancient history. Yeah. Well, it's but your snacks are in a new place, and you got to figure out that setup. Running, I
Right.
had it down.
No, you have a cycling jersey with pockets at the back and stuff like that?
No, I have little packs on
On the
the frame.
on the frame bags. Okay, okay.
Yeah.
If you keep those energy bars or snacks in the jersey pockets, you would be able to reach out. You don't need to unzip the frame bags and get them out and stuff.
Yeah.
You can eat on the go and stuff. So
Mhm.
that will save you a lot of energy stopping and starting and trying to build the speed back up and all that.
Yeah, well, what I realized, I need to practice even clipping my foot in the pedal. My God, Rob
Yeah.
Lavasser admits when he first got clips, he fell several times until he figured out how to do it quickly enough.
Every one of us will fall. There is no doubt.
Yeah, okay.
In fact, the first time I used cleats was in Vermont. And once I got my fixie, the Bulldog, I got SPD pedals, the mountain bike
Mhm.
pedals with a kind of platform support also along with them, and I went out for a ride. Came back into the parking lot where had access to the apartment, and then I forgot that I was clipped in and just down top. So it was
Boom. Yeah.
so it was
Yeah.
embarrassingly slow fall, but thankfully no one else was there to see it.
Okay. It's not just me. Okay.
No,
Well, I'm
it's
practicing it in the cellar, holding on to the workbench, trying to clip in, going, oh my God.
no,
Yeah.
it is kind of falling is almost like a rite of passage, but
Okay.
a couple of a few rides you will figure it out. It's not a big problem.
Well,
Yeah.
I fell a few times on this Vermont Super 8 first day there, That was a crazy day, I have to say. We had a crazy rainstorm come through. We got absolutely hammered with rain, and I didn't realize my packs. I had a rain cover for them that I'd put off, but I took it off when the race started. Well, wouldn't you know, the rain started up again, and these packs were not waterproof. My pack was literally filling with water,
Oh.
because the zippers weren't waterproof.
Hmm.
I didn't figure this out until I got home and wondered why the thing was so heavy. And I reached in the bottom and I had a towel in there that was soaking wet. I probably had an extra gallon of water in the panniers on the bike, thinking, oh my
Right.
God, I've been carrying this up hills, But yeah, I got soaked. Everything got soaked. It was kind of a crazy way to try your first day at bike packing, Oh,
I
boy.
know. I know. So,
Anyhow.
yeah, one thing I wanted to talk about is you did by this time you did what 28 marathons so far, and
Yeah.
you qualified for Boston a couple of times, right? So
Actually, four times, yeah, and I
four
ran
times.
it twice.
Okay, you qualified for Boston four times and ran it twice. So you
And
mentioned
this
that,
was when I was in my 50s, I mean,
yeah.
the early ones, I wasn't fast enough. I didn't train well enough, but finally, when I hit 50, I was actually going fast enough to qualify. I did initially had thought I hadn't qualified, and then I realized 6 months later, like, oh my God, I actually qualified. So I signed up for Boston and went and ran it with the gang. That was 2004. Ran it again in 2009.
Nice.
And
So, what was the things? What was the changes in? What were the changes in your training leading up to races where you qualified for Boston, as opposed
well,
to your initial, marathons?
the 2003 thing, I would say, Sandy Coleman was a pretty serious runner. She trained pretty hard, and she actually had run 3:15 previously at Chicago and I think the Portland, the main marathon. But in 2003, she was, again, this is her Sandy Grams telling us to go out and run. During the summer, we were going down and training on the track, or when it became available, when the snow melted and the track was available. There's, as you know, Montpelier High School is just down the hill from National Life, so it's great. They just had a dirt track, but we were able to go down there and run. So we were actually doing sprints, to build up our wind. So we did that pretty regularly. We do that once a week, and we do a hill run once a week. We go over, run to the tower, the Hubbard Park Tower, which is this zigzag, fairly steep path up to the top of that, and then come down the backside, and then you got to run back up the hill to National Life.
Oh, National Life Hill is always
always tough. Exactly. It's very unforgiving. And I would always tell myself and other people in the group, when you run a race, it doesn't end like this. You don't have an uphill at the finish. So this is great. This is training for the race. But yeah, that year, 2003, we did all kinds of, sprints and speed work. And we did those hill climbs. Again, we do those at least once a week, speed work, once a week, the hill climbs. And we all had really good times at VCM that year, even though, and again, I didn't go out and hammer it. I actually ran very even splits. The first half marathon was 20 seconds faster than the second half marathon. So I ran it very
close. Yeah.
Yeah. But I could sort of hold a pace without falling apart,
Yeah.
Again, they talk about hitting the wall in the marathon. It starts happening, 16, 18, 20 miles, where you start feeling people, you can hear them, their feet slapping, they're running kind of sloppily and starting to drag. But if you didn't hammer it at the beginning, if you did it nice and evenly and you did your training, that's not bad. You just keep going and you go through it and you hold your pace and you hold your form. Keeping your form is a big deal. I think it's probably more of a big deal on the bike. I don't know if there's such a thing as keeping your form, but that's huge in terms of efficiency. If you start to slump, breathing is harder. Everything is harder. So you can just keep your back straight and shoulders up. You can actually breathe easier. It hurts less, and you just keep chugging along. So when we did that extra training, anyhow, that kind of gave us the push to have a qualifying time.
Excellent. Yeah, it is pretty talking of form, it is pretty much similar in cycling as well. If you are able to keep a straight back, and if you are able to stay aero, you save a lot of energy riding, right? So, and you will not have back issues and stuff like that. So that form is important anywhere. Yeah.
Oh, so it is even. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, the mountain biking is a different position, but
yeah. Even there,
I'm trying different handlebars. What I find, the mountain bike, the flat bar, your hand always in that position. Now you've got the drop bars. You can put your hands in several different positions as you ride. With the flat bars, my hand starts to get numb, especially
you don't have too many options.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm trying it. Surly makes a thing called the corner bar. That it's a handlebar for mountain bikes, but it's kind of got a drop section. It's got a little stub that sticks up that you can hang on, so you can put your hand in different positions. So I'm going to try those. They're back ordered. My God, they're like almost 5 months behind in shipping those.
Wow.
But
nowadays,
try those and see how that works.
Yeah, nowadays everything is back ordered with the components and stuff. Yeah, because of all the COVID thing.
Supply line issues. Yeah.
So one thing that I noticed, I think around the time I was there or just before, you had a really big health scare, with cancer and stuff, right? So can you share that experience? What was that cancer? What was that period like in terms of how you were able to deal with it and overcome it, and go ahead.
Sure. Yeah, that was 2009. I was diagnosed in October 2009 with a colorectal cancer, a tumor. It was like stage 2 at the time, So we caught it fairly early, but so colonoscopies, they recommend you get it when you turn 50. Well, I had put it off. I was like 55. I'm like, oh, I'm a runner. I don't need to do that.
Mm.
So my doctor finally said, "Oh, why don't you go get a colonoscopy?" I was complaining about some vague symptoms, just cramping and stuff, nothing obvious, So went and got checked out, and I'm sort of waking up from the colonoscopy, and the doctor leans in my face and says, "Oh, you've got cancer." I'm like, well, that
Wow.
sucks. I'm like, well, so anyhow, I was like, oh crap. It's funny because I had run Boston that Patriots Day earlier that year, about 6 months earlier. So clearly I had it at that time, didn't know it, but I'm like, gee, I ran Boston with a tumor. I wonder if that's a different category. Maybe I can get an award. But anyhow, I had that. What you do for that? They did some radiation initially. Then I had a round of chemo. Then they did the surgery, and then another round of chemo after that. This is stretching out over like a 9-month period. So yeah, that kind of takes the wind out of your sails, but I kept running a little bit during that period. I found I had enough energy and stuff and that always made me feel better. Again, you talk about mood. Oftentimes, when I'm going to do this, was true before cancer, after cancer, whatever, but you don't want to do a run. You're like, oh, I don't feel good. And I'm like, but you know what? I know I'm going to feel better after I run. And invariably that's true. You always feel better after you run,
Yeah.
unless you're sprinting and falling down and throwing up or something, but just you just feel better,
Mm.
even if you didn't initially. So it really helped me feel better during all the various treatments. Again, I wasn't doing very much. I was doing 2-3 mile runs, I had dropped to maybe 2 or 3 times a week, instead of 5 or 6 days a week. But that made a huge difference, just sticking with something to look forward to. But yeah, I tried Vermont City Marathon a year later after all the treatments finished
No,
in
you
2010.
just to interrupt you there, because that is precisely around the time I was there, right? I came
Yeah,
in
yeah,
late
2010.
late 2009 and left late 2010, and I did not know about your cancer and the treatment that you were that you are undergoing until much later, right? And because you were running, you were continuing to run and staying active, and because I joined you for many runs during that time.
Well, I was ramping back up in late 2010 because I had
Right.
planned to run VCM in 2011,
Right.
and so I was ramping back up. So I was doing our usual pattern of running, getting out for lunchtime runs, and then in January we would start ramping up again.
Mm.
So I did that, and I was doing the long runs, and I was just there was too much pain in my beat and everything, and I had enough residual damage, I guess, from the treatment where I wasn't able to do the whole marathon. So I actually dropped out a month or a month and a half before the marathon. I had a friend from California who was going to come and run with me. He came and ran it himself with me cheering him from the sidelines. That was hard, but I tried it again in 2012 and had much better luck. Was still a little run down, but just stuck with it. In 2013, I did great. 2013 was the year right after Boston, so by God,
Mm.
I had to go run it just on principle. But
Mm.
yeah, so 2013 I felt much better and kept running them through 2017 each year.
Yeah. So
Um,
that it took a couple of years for you to almost fully recover from the effects of the cancer and the treatment, the
Yeah,
body
mostly the
went through.
treatment. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes,
the
the
treatment,
treatment's
the
pretty brutal.
radiation and chemo are really hard on the body, right? So,
Yeah, they take a toll. You got to sort of accept that and deal with it. It doesn't mean you can't do anything, but it does limit you, energy wise and everything. It sort of takes a toll. So I
mhm.
had to be patient and build back into that, and it came. 2015, I went out. This same friend from California who had come to run with me in 2011, we ran the Big Sur Marathon, which is on the Pacific Coast Highway, very scenic, right on the ocean. Just a beautiful area near Monterey, California. Near that particular area.
Mm.
So that was fun. That was a great adventure. So I ran Big Sur and VCM that year. So I actually was able to do 2 marathons. So I was doing pretty well. But one of the things that the surgery had done that I didn't realize was when I hurt my back, I stopped running and my legs started swelling. I'm like, what is going on here? And I realized I had it's called lymphedema. One of the things they do with cancer surgery is remove lymph nodes. Well, they sort of screwed up the lymph flow in the one leg where they removed a couple lymph nodes. Now, if you continue to run and stay active, you'll never notice it. You exercise and flex the muscles enough where the fluid doesn't build up. If you get inactive, you'll start getting fluid buildup, which is what lymphedema is. So I'm like, oh my God, that's been there all along. It's been there since 2010, but I never noticed it because I was active enough where it never became an issue.
Mm.
So yet another reason to stay active, it actually has helpful effects if you have other issues going on.
So
It
you
have
noticed
actually,
this in 2017 when you injured your back,
yeah, and I stopped running.
right?
I stopped running for a period of time. I'm like, okay, I got to let my foot heal and everything. So for 2 months, I didn't run at all. It was driving me crazy. And my leg was puffing up because I wasn't using it enough.
Right.
I'm like,
Yeah.
but interesting to find that out. But so I'm slowly working my way back to do longer
And that
distances and
and
sort.
that injury was through.
Well, that was because of the surgery. It's a side effect of the surgery.
Oh, okay.
Um, and in fact, the back injury was probably a side effect of the radiation because the radiation causes damage. They kind of warn you about this, but don't really give you a lot of detail. But I have 3 vertebrae that's the only area of my spine that has any arthritis in it. Well, it's where they did the radiation. And that's also
Ah,
where I ruptured the disc. So so you just have to respect that and be careful. I should have done more core work, just protect my spine.
mhm,
So yet another reason to do your training. But
right.
I'm learning you got to do more core work, Pilates type exercises, whatever, to
Mhm.
protect that back. It really does help. And stay active. It helps you deal with lymphedema. So you again, yeah, there are a lot of benefits to running. Not all of them are
Yeah.
obvious to everybody, but
Yeah.
um,
No, this is great. But with the injury, the freak yeah, back injury, what happened while you were operating chainsaw or something, right? Like that,
the
right? What?
sawzall, yeah, reciprocating saw, they're
Okay.
pretty violent things. You use them in construction to cut sections of wall out and everything.
Right.
But yeah, I was trying to do it with one hand, really stupid. I should have had somebody helping me. I was trying to hold the thing with the other hand, and it did this violent shake where I felt this burning sensation go down the back of my left leg, and I'm like, what was that? And I
Right.
had a bunch of muscle spasms and stuff and thought, oh, I screwed something up. So I finally went in and had it evaluated. And the guy's like, yeah, you ruptured your disc. And what was crazy was he says, disc ruptures at your age are pretty rare. It tends to kind of harden up and get really stiff. He said, this is usually a younger person's injury. And I'm
Wow.
like, oh, great. Thanks. So running helped my disc stay soft. So I ended up rupturing it.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
but
No.
anyhow, yeah, that was humbling. Just be careful of power tools. They can cause their own damage,
Yeah.
So didn't get hurt biking, didn't get hurt running, got hurt trying to do construction,
Stay away from it.
Yeah, exactly. I should have stayed out running, Jeez, yeah.
I know. Okay, so now you kind of reduced running. You haven't done any marathon since that injury in 2017, but you are building back
I've
up.
done some 5Ks and 10Ks, but
Okay, not marathons, yeah,
nothing
but
longer.
5K, 10K, and now you mentioned building up to something of a relay marathon or something. What was that?
Yeah, it's a half marathon. Yeah, well, VCM they have people can run the whole thing. They can run a 2-person relay team where each run half, or you can have up to a 5-person relay team where each person runs a different section, but they have relay stations around the course.
Right.
So I'm running a 2-person team with Greg Jackson, one of the guys from our running gang at National Life.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a good runner. He's a pretty gifted runner. He's a few years younger than me, but he's pretty fast.
Yeah.
I think he qualified for Boston, but he doesn't want to put all that effort into the marathon training.
Right. But
But he'll do a half with me.
Yeah, all the best for that. When is this? In May, right?
May, yeah, Memorial Day, the end of May, like the 25th or something. 29th, I guess. That's the Sunday. Yeah. So I guess it's May 29th this year. It's whatever the Sunday is of Memorial Day weekend,
Yeah.
Which is nice because you get a recovery day on Monday because you have Monday off because it's Memorial Day, where you get to gimp around with your sore marathon legs, It's always funny watching marathoners the day after the race go down like a set of stairs or something, I think they have videos of this of people who ran the London Marathon. Some guy's trying to go down the stairs into the subway and he's going and okay.
Yeah.
But that goes away pretty quick,
Yeah. No, but this is great. You all the very best for that, the preparation for that.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. But this has been fantastic conversation. I really enjoyed catching up with you and living through all those memories and learning about your running journey and stuff. Are there any tips for working athletes to do well at sport and life in general to kind of conclude this?
Yeah, again, I think we've been talking around it a lot, but it's just sticking with it, making it's almost got to be a lifestyle. You always do feel a little better after you run it. They're finally doing the science to support this now, but it really is true. It's not just you and I, talking it up. You have to stick with it. It makes it easier to do an initial race. It makes it easier to do longer distances. Just any kind of regularity really helps. And you don't have to go crazy. I'm not an elite athlete. Good Lord. I was a mid-packer in high school cross country, but I'm still running. And most of my friends who are fast aren't running at all, but it's just sticking with some sort of lifestyle pattern there, and it will pay off, in a lot of ways,
Yeah. Awesome. And also all the best with your biking and bike packing.
Yeah.
And you use the same principles that you use for running and you will be fine, gradually.
Okay. So there's some hope for me, Venki. I'm so glad to hear that.
Oh, definitely. And you are free to message me anytime, email me or message me on Messenger. And if you need any, if you need to bounce off any ideas or any tips for biking and stuff, please reach out. I'll be glad.
Well, I may be out there in the middle of the Northeast Kingdom. I bought a Garmin InReach device where if you have no cell coverage at all, you can send text messages through a satellite, and you can also push a button and it'll set off alarms and emergency services will come and get you, but yeah, if I'm in a pinch, I may be messaging you out from the middle of the Northeast Kingdom somewhere.
Right.
Hey, my pedal came off. What do I do? Oh gosh.
Right. Thanks, Dave. This has been a fantastic chat. I really, really
A-
had fun.
And all the best to you. I'm so impressed with your website, and boy, you need a marketing department now. You're doing long runs. You got the bike gear. You look good. Gee,
Thank
so
you.
stick with it.
Thank you. Thank you. Will do.
And I will be sending you some messages when Rob and I try some of our shorter bike packing trips. We'll let you know how it goes.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Please do. Please do. Share pictures and all that. I'm really looking forward. Awesome.
Sure will.
That was my conversation with Dave King. I really enjoyed this conversation. I hope you did too. It was really inspirational to hear about how staying active and continuing to run helped him deal with that situation. If you are finding these stories inspirational and useful, please consider supporting the channel by subscribing to the channel on YouTube. It really helps. Thanks again for your continuous support. See you next week with another guest.